turn that around.
Would everybody please mute yourself unless you're going to be asking a question, which will happen later in the show. I'm Sarah Armstrong. I'm the chair of Storytelling Association of California, and I just am thrilled that you are here to spend some time with us. We're really excited about the ideas we have to share, and we also want to hear from you. We're going to be creating a booklet of tips to be a good MC, and we'll include your ideas as well. I want to introduce each of our team members briefly, and then you'll be seeing them later on in the show. My colleague, Tina Tomiyama, she studies personal storytelling with Barbara H. Clark, and she credits Toastmasters with teaching her how to be an event planner. She co-founded Story Masters about 10 years ago, and his team taught business storytelling at Charles R. Drew University for 4 years. She has told at IMA LA, Strong Words, and the LA Public Library and other venues. Let me introduce Sheila Arnold. Sheila has been gifted by God with performance skills, and she has been using this talent since she was 8 years old. Since 2003, she has been a full-time storyteller traveling through the United States and sharing a variety of stories, including historic characters, Christian monologues, coaching, and workshops. She's co-founder with Donna Washington of Assist, Artists Standing Strong Together, which has hosted several monthly online sessions since March 2020. Mio Yamauchi is a computer programmer, and she writes narratives for computers at UCLA during the day and tells stories for humans at night. When Story Masters went digital last year, she started hosting Zoom meetings and sharing technical tips with the membership. Ty Fance has been a storyteller for a number of years. He produced and hosted Off My Head for 7 years in Altadena, California. He's told at NSN's 2021 conference, Connected Across the Divide, at the San Francisco Free Folk Festival, and at dozens of other venues, both Zoom and live. Welcome, everybody, and thank you for your participation. I want to, Sheila calls it take a breath, do a moment, and I wish for a moment, would everybody put yourself on gallery view for a second, please? And what I want you to do okay, if you go to gallery view and look at everybody in the eye, just take a moment to look at those little squares and see if you can look at everybody in the eye for just a moment. Super, super. Thank you, everybody. So we're trying to make this a situation where you're all here. We're welcoming you here. We want you to be here. We want you to have a wonderful time. I want to recognize folks who are part of this group as well. Behind the scenes, Shagrin, who is our wonderful, amazing SAC treasurer and webmaster. And also behind the scenes for this show is our dear friend Claire Hennessy, who's the producer of 6 Feet Apart. You've probably, hopefully, seen many of those wonderful shows. Several people have already sent materials or been thinking about what it means to be a good MC, a good tech host, a good producer for many years, even before COVID, of course, when people were doing festivals and doing situations live. So Milbury Birch and Mary Gay Ducey produced some documents and have done workshops and continue to do workshops on how to be a good MC. Very powerful, very important. And Marilyn McPhee also has sent her ideas, and Ty has sent a number of them too, and we'll be asking you to do the same as well later in the show. So the way this is going to go is we each of our panelists will have a little bit of time to share something about their expertise and address some ideas. And then we're going to have a nice question and answer period. So you can start putting your questions into the chat, and we'll be addressing those. And then we will finish up with telling you about some goodies and some things that are coming up next. So I want to welcome back my friend Sheila Arnold. and she is going to start us off with defining what we mean, what we're talking about, what we mean by producer, MC, and the tech or Zoom host. So Sheila, please help us out.
Hello, everybody. It's so good to be here. And I'm just delighted to see people. And again, I've met so many people online. I can't wait to one day I'll be able to see all the people that I've gotten to know while doing so many of these online programs. So thank you for coming today. I'm hoping that many of you are coming because you are doing work as an MC or a producer or a Zoom tech host, or you're thinking about it, or just getting prepared, or if you're curious, that's also good, because curiosity means that we now know that you might be interested and we might be asking you to do this. Well, for the longest time, since March 20th of 2020, when Artists Standing Strong Together did our first online program, and I was the person that did that, I learned that my role was actually called, now get this, I was the Pro C host. I know that sounds like it doesn't exist because it didn't exist until then. I was the producer, I was the MC, and I was the Zoom tech host, all at the same time. So I call myself the Pro C host. And I will tell you, I didn't know any better. So I just did it because we didn't have any kind of roadmap. We had no idea what we were going to do. We just knew we wanted to tell stories and do programs, and it looked like Zoom was the only way that we could survive. And so we just started working it. And so I did the same, not knowing what it was. Here it is 19 months later, and I'm like, what was wrong with me? Why was I doing all these other people's jobs? So when we're online doing performance things, there really are 3 online or even hybrid type program roles. The first one is the producer. The second one is the MC. And the third one is your tech/Zoom host. So those are your 3 things. And I'll just ask Sarah or someone to just type that over in the chat, just so you'll just know. And the reason I was the one that said, I think we just need to let people know how to define things, because we've been using them interchangeably anywhere and confusing the heck out of people is basically what we've done. So if you are a producer, what that means is that you are planning the program from the ground up. Who's going to tell in the show? How long will they have to tell? How long, what kind of ways are you going to introduce people? That can be a producer or an MC, but how long are you going to have people on there? Who's going to be the people that are there? Who's going to set everything up so that we know we have the right people in the right order? Oh, that's an important one right there. So and who's going to follow up with people that, when they're like 15, they haven't made it to your room yet. And who's going to follow up with them, because there's another person who doesn't need to do that because they're doing another job. So the producer is your beginning place. Then there's the MC. And oftentimes the producer and MC are the same people, but let's be real. If you could have yourself split in half, try to do that. So the MC is the person that is Sarah in this particular program today. Sarah Armstrong is the person that introduces, makes people feel welcome, takes a moment of breath or a land acknowledgement at the beginning, that kind of moves us smoothly through everybody that's in schedule. But they also do a really important thing. They save time. They help us when everything is falling apart in front of the audience. When someone doesn't make it in on time, the MC is there to say, well, why don't you add to the chat what you've done the last 48 hours of your life while I'm trying to figure out what to say until our storyteller gets here. Okay, so the MC is the one that makes the program go along, and they also are the emotion for the program. If you have a good MC, I was recently at a program, and it was for Scary Tales, and they introduced me as the most nurturing person they'd ever met. I was a very big nurturer. They said nurturing 5 times. Then I proceeded to tell a scary story about singing bones and a man who ate his children's flesh and blood in a stew. Just so you know, that was the nurturing that they were getting. It wasn't quite what you need to have for scary stories. So the MC is also the heartbeat. And then last but not least, there's the tech and Zoom host. Do not underestimate what they do. That's Claire, Hennessy, and Shags right now for us. They make sure that everybody stays muted, that no Zoom bombers, which are still happening, come into your room, that you do all the share screens, that people's sound is good before they ever get on. They practice and make sure people can hear the music that they're doing. That's the role of the tech host. Sometimes these are all together. But what we need to do is, as we're growing in what we're doing, and we're going to be doing this from here on out, even when we go back to being live, we will still be doing this because we've started something that just won't stop. And that's a good thing. And so we need to know the roles. Producer, planning it all. MC, keeping it moving and being the heartbeat. And tech and Zoom hosts, the one with the true power, because they can shut you down and shut you up and stop your video. But they're also very important. So I hope that helps.
Just wonderful. Thank you so much, Sheila. How long did it take you to figure out about these 3 separate roles?
So a month and a half ago, okay, maybe a little bit longer than a month and a half ago, but not very much longer. Sarah Armstrong can vie for me on this. But it's only at the beginning of this year did I start going, I think I need to have other people start practicing to be, MCs and doing this kind of thing. And then I started recognizing literally about 2 months ago that it really was a training ground, that I needed to train people to be producing MCs and to be, tech Zoom host and to do all the other things. So really, it's just been this year that I've kind of come to that. And in the last 2 months, I've really understood, because now that I'm watching other people do it, I realize all the information is sitting in my head. And so I've had to go and say, oh, don't you know to do that? And they're like, no, I don't know to do that. So it's been a learning process.
I'm so glad to hear you say that it didn't instantly occur to you, because it didn't instantly occur to me either. Thank you so much, Sheila. We'll come back to you later.
Good.
Now let's hear from our next presenter, Ty Fance. Ty Fance has been producer and MC of a 7-year show in Altadena, as you heard in his introduction, and also, of course, a performer. Now, Ty, do you want to tell us something about your experience, do's, don'ts, mistakes you've made?
Oh, goodness. Yes, I do. I totally appreciate the presentation that Sheila just gave, because I was one of the guys who decided to do the producing, the hosting, the tech at a live show. I was enthusiastic enough about it not to be intimidated by it, but I had no idea. I had no idea what I was getting into. And I found that the biggest thing I wasn't ready for was the emotional shift I had to make from producer to MC, and then to the tech guy. But what I mean by that is, in one frame, I'd be ready to produce, and I wasn't ready to be asked or told as an MC how to do an introduction. Because I'm happy you're here. Now you're trying to tell me something else that has nothing to do with me producing the show. And I didn't know how to place those in boxes. So occasionally they overlap, and emotionally it got a little messy. So and then on the tech side of that, as Sheila mentioned, you want the sound to be good. I understood that I had expectations that weren't 100% communicated. For instance, at one point I realized that I can't assume all people are familiar with handling the microphone. These are all, again, about live shows. And it became a little frustrating for the producer slash MC to run up to the stage to adjust the mic for a live performance. So as Sheila admitted, I think I'd have to say my ego was more in my way before I started to realize I needed help. So my biggest problem was realizing at first that I didn't know that they were that different, and not handling my emotional professionalism on all three levels. Those things need to be separated. And in hindsight, I come to appreciate tech people, as we talked about before. My God, dude, they make the show go. Sound, lighting, and then of course the MC introduction, being smooth about that and getting all the pertinent information about the performer so that they can be successful. The whole idea I learned in hindsight, even though I was doing it, I didn't know the concept. I'm trying to set up the show for success. I need to be willing to ask for professional help and making sure they're also on the same team. So there's a need to have a little bit of a conversation about the whole process with the three team members, so we're all on the same page. So went in as a performer, got involved with all three elements, realized, oh yes, I need some help, got the help, and saw some really fabulous shows as a result of having the right people, the right order of performers, the right talent, coordination in terms of the sound and tech. And I mean, there's just so much to it. What else can I answer for you?
It's interesting that we're talking about the three roles here, but there's also the fourth role that you mentioned, the performer. Now, would you ever recommend that somebody carry out even two of those four roles?
No. I would have, it's not for everybody. And I'd have to tell you, I thought it was for me. But you know what happened to me, guys? I'm not a perfectionist, but I know what it would take to get good quality work, which means putting the time in. I found that I had split I sacrificed the quality for quantity. I tried to do too many things and I did them okay. But I also realized each of those positions require a certain skill set and a certain amount of information that need to be researched and brought back into the gig. I think at one point I realized my performances, when I performed, I even tried to perform my own show. What was I thinking? So my performance lacked the attention that I would have given it had I not been involved with hosting, producing, running tech, and emceeing. So I don't recommend it, but I'm sure that there are people out there who are talented enough to get it done. I have to admit that I'm not the guy. I can do one thing really well. I just don't multitask at the level that I would want. So it would be a little bit of a conflict, or I'd be a hypocrite if I said, yeah, go for it, and then let you know that I can't do it. So
that's fascinating. Thank you so much, Ty. That's really great. That was a question I always wondered. I have seen people trying to do all four roles, or certainly three of them, and wonder. Now I see that there's a comment from Ed Lewis in chat that we might need backup people for some of these roles.
True.
What's your take on
that? That's having someone. I'm not sure if you mean at that very evening. Having a backup, I would find that the quality of the performance and the experience, because I added a level of stress doing all three, and in one case all four, that just takes away from the experience. So having someone else do the job, I'm so into that. I guess I'm repeating that aspect of it. But I just think overall, for a good Zoom performance, a good live performance, these things carry over. If you are able to get talent that can support your effort, I would really encourage that, because not only, I have a friend that basically said it this way: you're giving more opportunities to other people instead of having them all in your basket. And to me, when more people are involved that want to be there, that's an awesome scenario. Mm-hmm. So I guess the takeaway here is, for the best possible show, more talented people at the right jobs would help that happen. with less stress, which I like. I don't like stress. So,
And maybe we need to start developing lists of talented producers, talented MCs, and talented tech hosts.
that's not a bad idea, because oftentimes we're going to ask someone who may know someone. And if there's a resource, maybe at the SAC, that has a list of folks that do that gig, that would be great, actually.
Mhm.
I mean, the entertainment business, acting, singing, those guys, they have it all. They have the producer guild, they have, writers guild, they have those things. It would be great to have, if you will, a phone book, if you will, of all these folks that we could call upon to get the job done. Absolutely.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Ty. That was terrific to hear from you.
My pleasure. Awesome.
We have a third panelist. She's a storyteller herself, also can do all of these roles, but she's absolutely brilliant at the tech part of things. In fact, she's written a manual on how to keep things like your internet from going squirrely. Yes, there are things you can do.
Yeah.
Mio Yamauchi, would you care to unmute Mio and tell us a bit about technical tips?
Thank you, Tina. So I'm going to talk about a few items from my handout. The first item is internet connection. If your Wi-Fi connection is not strong, you may want to check your environment before blaming your internet provider. And think about the traffic on the street. The more cars street has, the slower the traffic gets.
Mhm.
Then there are pedestrians and parked cars and bicycles, in scooters. Everything on the street will make the traffic slow down. We can say the same thing about our Wi-Fi connection. Thanks to the technology, everything in our house is becoming smarter. For example, smart TV. It's communicating with your Amazon Prime or Apple TV, Netflix. Not only TV, but your phone, iPad, computers, games, refrigerator, microwave, printers, even the lights. Everything in your house wants an attention from the Wi-Fi connection. And if you think that your phone does nothing when you don't play with, you are wrong. Depending on your phone settings, each app is trying to get a connection from your Wi-Fi connection. Like parked cars. They may have an idle moment, but once in a while, they want to go back into the traffic. For example, your news app, it's updating the data constantly. The map, it's checking the location. Or your email app is getting new emails with attachments. Each connection can be tiny, but if you have hundreds of tiny connections, it can definitely slow down your traffic. Also, the location is important. Even in the same room, the connection strength can be different, depending on the distance from the walls and also the objects around you. I'm in the living room right now, but if I move 1 feet from my left to my left, the connection will be weaker. So if you are using a laptop, just move around and check the strength using the online speed test tool, which is also in the handout. The second item is lighting. If you are telling a story, a shady face can be effective depending on the story, but otherwise, try avoiding the side light, backlight, or overhead lighting. If you have to sit with your back to the window, make sure to close the shade and have a light in front of you and have overpowered the light behind you. The natural light can be effective. It's a good tool, but it can be tricky because the sun and clouds move.
Yeah.
One time I decided using the natural light. The lighting was just perfect until it wasn't.
Mm.
Because the sun moved and the meeting went longer than I thought it would. And eventually I got a very shady face. So be aware where the sun will be and plan it accordingly. If you use the artificial light, have the light above the camera level. And if you wear glasses, don't put the light in front of you. Let me demonstrate. I have a prop here. Okay. So if I have a light in front of me, you see the circles on the glasses, which means I have to raise the light and move it to the side. Now the reflection is gone. The point is, you don't look at the light. When you do, the circles will be back. Also, you may want to adjust the computer screen brightness because this is also a light. Let me show you. When it's bright, you can clearly see my screen on the glasses. And when I turn it down, I can still see my screen, but the reflection is not too bad anymore, right? And also, if you are reading notes like Microsoft Word or Google Doc on the screen, you may want to change the background color because the white background can be also a reflection. So if you are using the, I also talk about the soft light in the handout. This type of the light is hard light. When you use this type of light, it gets really strong and it tends to create a strong shadow behind you. When you see strong shadow behind you, it may need to just diffuse it by covering with the umbrella or using a scarf. But if you cover the light directly, be careful because the light gets really hot. You don't want to start a fire during the show. The last item is the sound. It's most important item next to the connection. But it's also difficult to make it right because there is no one method that works for everybody. Everybody's situation and the room setting and the device are different. It is said that the best place to record the quality sound for podcast is a closet because it's a confined space and all the fabrics absorb the echoey sound. But obviously, we can't live stream from the closet. It's not a good idea. Then how do we remove the echoey sound? One way is to put fabrics or cushions around you. But again, it depends on your room setting. You may not be able to put the cushion depending on the distance from your computer or the room setting. Another way is to use a microphone. Even this type of mic does work. I'm using a microphone and let me let me show you the difference between with or without mic. So now I'm using without a microphone. You can see the difference. It's a little bit echoey, and the volume is also different. Some people like this booming sound, but I don't. So I usually use a microphone. Whatever you use, please test beforehand. Don't try just right before the show, because it sometimes takes time to make adjustments and make it right. And there's a Microsoft mic test on the audio settings. So you can just record and hear how you sound. And that's about it. And there is also a handout about the Zoom bombing. Mm-hmm. And fortunately or unfortunately, I haven't had a privilege to meet Zoom bombers. But yeah, there are ways to avoid Zoom bombers, and also when they come, how to handle it in the handout. So please check it out. Back to you, Tina.
Thank you so much, Miho. Dear audience, please click on that, the technical tips and the Zoom Bomber docs in chat, and download them. They are absolute godsends. Miho has just skimmed a couple of the tips, but there's 8 pages of technical tips with very clear diagrams about exactly how to use them. All right, so we have heard from our 3 panelists talking to us as experts. But speaking of Zoom bombers, Sheila, I hear from Sarah that you have a terrific Zoom bomber story. And since, like Miho, I have never personally met a Zoom bomber, why don't you tell us about your story?
Well, yes, I have a Zoom bomber story. I do want to just say, please look at the document. Zoom bombers are kind of coming back. They're also coming back a little bit differently. So I'm trying to find out more about how they're finding out more stuff, because we're using a lot of the setups to make it not happen. So we're gonna have to upgrade what we do as time goes on. So in March of 2020, or later March of 2020, I started to feel like we weren't able to gather with our families, and there was a lot of death that was going on, and people weren't able to go to funerals, and they weren't able to go to memorials, and it was just sad. And because of that, I just felt really like we needed a place that people could come. So I decided to create something online called 229, and I named it that, and that was the time I started as well, but 229 Community Memorial. And it was because on the first case of COVID in our state was in our United States was on February 29th. So 229 Community Memorial, and I put out the website. It was an open website. I didn't have any protections around it whatsoever. And I put it out everywhere. I put it on Facebook and Twitter and wherever I was, and invited people to come and share the names of people that they had lost, and then share a little bit about them. And I would light a candle, and I would hear the names and hear people share, or I would share names, and then I'd sing a song or have a song played, and then I'd have a poem or a scripture or something like that. And so I started to do this, and basically nobody but me came. And so I just got a lot of names of healthcare professionals that were dying around the world, and I would say their names and such. Until one day when there was someone that had died, and I invited some people to come in, and on that particular day, into the room, lots of people came, and they came with inappropriate virtual backgrounds. They came with backgrounds that had things that were from the concentration camps, and they were saying completely inappropriate things, and calling me names and racial slurs and all kinds of stuff. And I was like, okay, what do I do about this? And so I started shutting down where I could because I didn't, I just heard about Zoom Bomber, but hadn't planned for it or against it. And certainly wasn't expecting anybody to come. And I, try to get my friends to realize this was, sorry this happened. And, but I went through it and I went through it and it just, I survived it. Well, that day I went through and I found out how to get rid of Zoom bombers. And I also found out how to not just get rid of them, but how to handle the situation if they came in the room. And the number one thing is go to your chat and make sure they can't chat with anybody except for you. That's the number one, that, and then mute everybody and make it so that they can't unmute. So those two things, mute everybody, make sure that they can't unmute, and make sure the only person they can chat with is you, because you can handle it. Even though it's nasty and ugly and what they say is awful, you can handle it. The rest of the audience doesn't need to. So the next day I came back because I didn't know any better. And I came back and they came back too, awful backgrounds, but I was ready for them this time, except I forgot the whiteboard and I brought the whiteboard up for something and they took over my whiteboard. Okay, didn't have that ready, but I was, but this time as they were there, I was much better. So I was not frazzled this time, and I was just not letting them chat to anybody, which really bothers them because they can only chat with me, and that's not the point. And so, they can't make a spectacle of themselves. And but then a couple of them wanted me to, to pray for some people. And so I said, okay. And so one person put on there, could you pray for my friend Mo? And I said, and I typed back, yes, I'll pray for them. What is their last name? Lester. And so I said, Lord, I just pray for Mo Lester. Yeah. Could you pray for Nick Yep, I got it. But by this time, I'm having to laugh because they got me. They were all teenagers and they got me. And I was like, here I am, just keep saying the stuff that they're putting in the chat. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, what in the world? But, and so I finished up, I did everything I was going to do, but this time at least they couldn't talk to each other. So I knew they'd eventually go away. And that I didn't want to go back the next day. The reality is I didn't want to go back anymore. I didn't want to do this anymore. It was stupid. I was really the only person in the room. And it was just bad. And I had a conversation with God. I do that often, so don't worry. And I said, I don't want to do this anymore. And God said, I don't really care. I want you to keep doing this. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. But I kept doing it. And I went that day just dragging, didn't want to do it. And here they are again. This time it was a bunch of teenagers, and they obviously, the way that they were responding, they all knew each other. And this one I was prepared. I knew everything. The whiteboard was good. And I just started with my candle and started talking, and they were talking only to me, so it didn't really matter. But one person, Jack, just was like, I got to get rid of him out of this room. And I said, I'm going to remove you from the room. And now I've set it up so that you can't come back. And he said, Miss Sheila, type this out, of course. Miss Sheila, please don't remove me. And I went, well, I won't remove you if you remove your background. It's a very inappropriate background. And he did. I said, okay. And he said, can I speak? I said, no, not yet. I can't trust you on that yet. He said, that's okay. Please continue on. We're listening. And they were. They listened to the rest of the service the ceremony that I did. And then Jack asked, will you be here tomorrow? I said, yes, I'll be here every day at 2:29. Is it the same link? Yes, because I didn't have any common sense. Yes, it's the same link every single time. And he said, okay, we'll be back tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. So I invited a couple of friends to come, and they wanted to see these kids that came. So I came in, the kids came in, I went through the whole program, they listened and participated. Then they came back, and I was just shocked by this time. And they had a new friend that came in, and eventually I realized they were all from Ohio, all from the same high school. They all knew each other. They were grow-up friends. They'd all grown up together. And then one of the kids came in, and his name was listed as Ernie. And I said, well, kids, I have to miss the next 2 days because I have to do something, but we'll be back in 2 days. And Ernie said, oh, that's my birthday. I said, well, Ernie, when you come, if it's your birthday, we will celebrate your birthday. And I will make sure to do that. Oh, great, I'll be here. Oh, okay, good. And they were there, and I celebrated his birthday, and they were excited, and Ernie couldn't believe that. And so began a good month and a half of every day at 2:29, meeting the Zoom bombers. All these young people, these high school students, came every day. They came and they heard the names that I shared. Sometimes they said names. Sometimes I would ask them to read the poem. We had conversations. I shared about my sister dying and talked about what that meant to me. I asked them what was going on with them. We talked about how hard it was to be out of high school, of 2 hours of instruction a day. And what do you do with the rest of your day? Of your big sisters and family members coming home from college and what the dynamics were in the households. We did that every day. And then one day, we came in the room and we got Zoom bombed. Again, a bunch of people came, bad backgrounds, saying awful words. And Jack types to me, he said, Miss Sheila, let me at them. Let me at them. I will shut them down. They are acting so inappropriate. And I wrote back, Jack, this is what you did. No, I didn't. I didn't do anything like that. We never did that. Yes, you did. Well, after we got rid of the guys, and I still didn't let them do it, I did it because I said we have to do it with kindness, not with hurt. And that's the day that Jack said, Miss Sheila, we've decided we want to tell you our real names. And so then that day, they became who they really were. And so we continued on until I realized it was time to stop, that I was getting too busy, but more than that, something in my system, in my spirit had moved and there was another place I needed to be. So I told them that. And they understood too. I think they knew that we were all at that place. And so we planned a party. We had a great time at the party. And it was just lovely. And then we all shared emails. And to this day, Jack in particular still contacts me to say hi, tell me what's going on in his life, to let me fuss at him for vaping because he shouldn't be doing it. And I learned that it was started to make trouble, but it ended as a friendship.
Oh, how beautiful. Wow. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
What a great story. I don't know if I would ever have your patience or your
Whoops. Sheila,
unmute.
there you go. Yeah.
I don't know if I would ever have the ability to do what you did, both to get over myself to that point and to deal with these kids. But gee, what a splendid story. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you for letting me share.
And I want to thank Sheila as well. And I agree with you, Tina. I don't know if I've ever have the forbearance, but Sheila, you do that.
Yeah.
You listen and people respond and bring out their best selves. And that's just a lovely story. Unfortunately, many Zoom bombers aren't willing to do that, but you had the best people. It was great. Thank you so
May I
much.
just say one thing on Zoom bombing? I'm sorry, I'm not there anymore, but I was just, the only thing I was going to say is Zoom bombing can be really frustrating. It can feel even very violating, particularly if you have a speaker there. If you are the MC or you are the tech, it really goes back to you being the heartbeat as the MC and the tech just having as much as they can do in place, but do it calmly. Doing it uncalmly is usually is exactly what they want.
Yeah.
And if they can get what they want, which is to get everybody all up in arms, they have succeeded and will come back as often as they can. I never, ever changed the link. But after a couple of days, most of them stopped coming because there was no point.
Yeah.
They weren't frazzling me and they didn't have the capacity to frazzle anybody else. How do you alter their chat capacity? If you put up your chat right now, then you'll see where it says to and then a name or like to everyone and that says to whatever. and then go over to, no, don't go to host controls. You can, but this one's easier because I didn't want this to be every single time. Then go directly across from where it says to and go to those three little dots. And those three little dots, you should see, well, you can't see it. Sorry, you all can't see it because it's only for the host to be able to do. But the three little dots, when you click those three little dots as a host or co-host, it'll say participant can chat with 1, no one, 2, host and co-host, 3, everyone, and 4, everyone and anyone directly. So we have the choice. So I just shut everybody down so that they only could chat with no one, which meant I was the only one that could hear them sometimes. And it may be now where no one else can hear them. But at one point in time, that just meant that I saw what they said, which wasn't any fun because I didn't talk about what they said. So just keep your cool, and that's going to discourage them more than anything. If they come, just don't lose your mind.
Yeah.
Great advice. Great advice. Thank you again. So now I'd like to bring back all the panelists, and we're going to be opening this up for questions from the audience, and anything that you have on your mind about any of the roles or what happens, what should be happening or not happening. Our experts are here to help you. I want to, while we're looking for, we've got some questions coming up. That's great. But I want to,
Sarah, could I ask you to talk a little bit about the importance of attribution?
Thank you, Tina.
While people are putting their questions in chat.
Right. This, the booklet that we're creating together with you folks too, hopefully has a lot of ideas about things to do, things not to do, things to pay attention to. And sometimes they're things we might not even think of. For example, as storytellers, it's important to be able to tell stories legitimately and authentically. And if you are telling other than a story that you wrote, that you created, somebody else wrote it. Now, it may be that it's in the public domain, super, but you need to know that. And I'm suggesting that it's the host's job, while they're setting up and organizing everything, to communicate with everybody who will be telling stories in our world, to make sure they have the right to tell the story, and they would please give attribution. So that's one of my things, and that's going to go into our booklet along with
it should be the producer's job, because it should never get to the place where you meant to say producer, not host, right?
Oh,
because
I'm sorry. I was thinking producer. Yes.
That's right.
Thank you, Sheila. Thank you. Yeah, the MC shouldn't have to worry about that. It should be already done. Yeah.
The host should never have to worry about that either. It should just be the producer.
Right. But that's one thing that we're going to be including that, sometimes people don't think about. We had a situation where one of our friends told a story from a book, and she'd made it her own, but she hadn't checked with the author of the book. And so we weren't able to keep the video going because she didn't have permission to really tell that story, and we didn't want to broadcast that. So great. So Tina, what would you most like to ask our panelists?
I love asking people about their pet peeves. Now, Sheila, we know you're practically unpeevable, but surely you've got one or two things that just get on your last nerve. Come on, can you tell us?
I'll tell you, one of my pet peeves is when an MC thinks the program is about them, and it's not, and really keeps turning everything back to themselves. And don't do that, and don't play favorites with people. Like, oh, this is my favorite storyteller of the whole evening. They're the best. I've seen them forever. And the next person, and so here's Sheila. Go for it, Sheila.
And Sheila steps up feeling just like chopped liver. How about you, Ty? You must have a couple of pet peeves. You want to unmute and tell us about them?
Interesting. I gotta be honest, I don't really focus on things that upset me, what I try to do is work toward eliminating them before they occur. Like I like for people to be on time, so I will call, I will text, and then, you know, my whole idea is please be there 10, 15 minutes before the show, because if you don't know it, we're worried as a producer that you're not there. And if you show up on time, it's not as stress-free had you been there a few minutes earlier. So I guess if you want to flip it and put it under the category of pet peeves, being on time is one of mine. And I can, if people who know me, they give me a start time, I'm usually there, you know, helping them set up because I'm already there.
I think I read in something once that being on time is being 10 minutes earlier than whatever time you were told to be there.
That's good. I agree. I would appreciate that. It's not within everybody's ability to do it. I'm not mad at you, but you would make it feel less stressful for majority of producers if you just come up a little earlier. Plus, I think it's an advantage. See, because like I said, I like to make you successful. I want the event to be successful. And I found that if you're there earlier, you're able to absorb any new developments that may affect your performance. So you're actually helping yourself and helping me as a producer.
That's great. All right, Mio, is there anything, any pet peeve that hasn't been mentioned by Sheila or Ty that just grates on you?
Okay, I have two pet peeves that I can think of right now. So the first one is the notification sound, the emails or text during the show. So I don't know if they are trying to show off how popular they are. I don't really care. And please do enable the do not disturb mode. And it's also in the handout, so please check out. And another thing is name pronunciations. As you can imagine, people keep butchering my name so many times. And I'm not asking to pronounce my last name. My first name, it has only 2 syllables, an easy one. Still, they keep mispronouncing my name. And one time, an MC mispronounced my name. And I don't know how he did, but he mispronounced every single syllable. And because it was an in-person show, a couple of audiences corrected him. And then he tried again, then mispronounced again, miserably. Then the more audience members tried to correct him. And so they had a good 30 seconds back and forth and tried to make him right. And then he failed it every time. So in the end, he said, oh, whatever, and just come up to the stage and tell your story. So it had nothing to do with my story. And it took a while to recover from the damage. So please learn, if you are an MC and introduce storytellers, please learn their names and pronounce it properly. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mio. That was wonderful. And thank you, dear audience. Those questions are coming thick and fast. Sarah, have you had a chance to look at some of them and pick one that you...
Well, first, I just want to ask you about a pet peeve, and then I want you to ask me about a pet peeve.
All right. I think my I know some other people feel that sound quality is their pet peeve, but for me, it's the visual quality. The other day I was in a meeting and the guy was talking from a room that had a ceiling fan. And the ceiling fan was right in the very top of his little square, and it kept going whoosh, 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 whoosh. I couldn't even look at his face because all I could see was that ceiling fan. It was just taking my eyes and dragging them to it. And I finally had to say, Dave, would you please tilt your screen a little bit and get that ceiling fan out of the way? So I guess my pet peeves are visual. How about you, Sarah? What's yours?
Well, I want to just respond to that. So I'm hoping somebody will be talking about the quality of backgrounds and the quality of the visual. But my pet peeve is when in any Zoom meeting, when the MC is not paying attention to what's going on in the meeting, you know, looking down, looking off, or doing something where they're not there. And there is a solution. You can turn off your video, but that's what bothers me the most.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings us to another good question. Should MCs turn off their video when they're not on stage during the story? Do you have a strong feeling one way or the other?
Do I?
Or maybe we can ask our panelists.
Yeah, I think it depends. It depends on what's going on around the MC or what that person is doing. But let's hear from our specialists.
I think that's a good question. I think it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Sarah. The overall experience we're taking in as we watch the screen, especially if they're visible, anyone visible, their action or lack of attention thereof is going to affect us. And if you are the host, obviously, as Sheila mentioned earlier, and I totally believe in this, you're the energy for the whole show. If you give an impression of not paying attention, it's going to have an effect on the show and maybe even the speaker at the moment because they could see you not paying attention. You guys won't know this, well, you may. Someone that does a really good job of paying attention, even though she's off, she's hosting, emceeing and not on screen for real, is a lady by the name of Beverly Nickens. Oh my God. She is so entertaining for not distracting, present, and the energy she brings back carries from the still shot of her when she's not on screen to the next moment. Because she is the driving force for that at that moment. So the experience. So it definitely affects if you're not paying attention or giving an interesting look. And turning off the screen, I think will be effective, but we shouldn't be off too long because then if you're not there, we notice that as well. I mean, if you're off for a moment, like I went to pick up my water a second ago and I just went off screen and then came back, I think that's enough. But if it's totally off and it's not dynamic, that should that also have an effect on the experience.
Very good.
Sheila or Mio, did you want to say anything about that?
I've talked too much, so Mio.
I totally agree with what Ty and Sarah said. Yeah, the MC has the power to how all of us feel. So yeah, it's really important to have an MC that pays an attention to the whole audience and make us feel welcome.
Okay, thank you, thank you. There's a question that came up that said, should the audience have their video on, or do you prefer to have it off? As an MC or as a performer, what do you think about having video on and off, on or off?
I'll talk. I think it's a great idea if it's on. Again, sometimes though there is, hopefully not as often, something going on in the background. Maybe they're watching a television show. I think I found as a performer a couple of instances, I'm like, well, you could just use a screen and that not be part of what I'm looking at. Though I so enjoy telling stories, it's not a showstopper. I imagine if I had 10 screens on, they all were like knitting and watching TV at the same time, that's probably a little disheartening. But I'm just so into doing the storytelling that I think I would just be okay with that.
Okay, and I see that Margaret has her hand up. So I'm going to ask the person here. So can you unmute yourself, Margaret, and let's hear your question.
So I'm a good example of someone who has her screen off. I want to say that I agree so much with Ty when he talks about that MC setting the energy of the room. And I think the MC has to make an assumption that he or she is always seen, always watched. And you have to be aware of yourself. As he mentioned, like he wanted to pick up a drink. Well, that might have been, if he showed the top of his head or whatever, that might have been the time to take himself off screen. And as an MC, you have to be so aware of yourself, because even though someone is telling the dullest anecdote in the world, you have to look like you're enjoying it, because the audience will take their cues from you. And so just I think being aware as an MC is really, really important. Be aware of yourself and that energy that you are projecting. But whether you're on screen or off screen, I think it may be better to be on screen as the MC, but you need to know when to take yourself off screen, because it could be distracting.
Thank you. Thank you. Andrew says, as a tech person, when the MC turns their screen off, I get nervous. So,
That just means you need to have a better relationship with your tech person.
yeah.
The tech person needs to have a better relationship with the MC, because if I, as an MC, can't go off because I have to go to the bathroom and it makes you nervous, and I am not going to type that to you necessarily right then and there, then that's a different issue. So, and I do believe that there's trust that should be built between and grow between your, all three of those particular positions. But the host and the MC, if you're worried that they're gone, that's a relationship thing. That's just my thought process.
That's great. And I see that Claire has her hand up. Would you hold on one second? This was an interesting question, sort of.
And don't forget, there's a whole list of questions from before. They're on that list.
I know it. So it's wonderful. It's wonderful. But Marnie says, is chat curator another role?
It definitely, I'll mention this, if we're doing a hybrid program where you're doing live and you're doing something that is being put onto video or live, if you are live streaming it to someplace, then having a chat curator is really important to keep that feeling of being engaged in the story. And so when I was a live MC at a program that was also being uploaded, live streamed onto Facebook. The producer had someone that was on Facebook that greeted everybody when they got in the room, that responded to all the things that were in chat, and made comments, and so that people would feel like they were actually in the room. And that person could also see that because we were told that we were to look around the room, but make sure that we look into the camera as well, as they were one of the people in the room. And so they could see when that was not happening and let the person doing the camera work, the tech person, know that people need to make sure that they're looking at the camera and not forgetting that the people in the virtual room are there. So if you're doing a hybrid, please make sure that you have somebody. You will have such a welcoming thing if you have somebody in the chat that is doing that. For me, if it's not hybrid, I don't try to have a chat curator. And when people say the chat is distracting, I just say, turn off the chat, which always confuses people that they can actually do that and it's okay.
So Claire, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah. So I do tech for Delta Word Weavers once in a while using the SAC version of Zoom. And then subsequently, I helped Sheila do some tech. And it seemed to me that her version of Zoom had way more stuff I could do. And I don't know if that was ignorance on my part, but it seemed to me that Sheila's version was more professional. And I guess if I'm right, could SAC get the better version?
We'll check it out. Yes.
Barry McWilliams has the answer. Update your Zoom at least every 2 weeks. At least every 2 weeks. because they are putting stuff out every 2 weeks at least.
Mhm.
And so the best way to update is by putting Zoom on your, do you have that in your book, Mio, about how to update?
Mhm.
Yes, I do. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's really important to use the latest version because they are putting the security patches and new features. So it's important to have the latest Zoom and also the operation system as well.
Yeah. Wonderful. Let's see. Let's go for another question here. What have we got? Here's one from Marnie Berenson. In my experience, tech host cannot be a performer. Comment. Take that. Kai, sounds like you want to take that.
Yeah, well, you mean in the same show? And it's such a great skill and such a big responsibility what tech does for us now that I appreciate. And I can't say that they can't perform because I mean, people are so talented nowadays, they can do so much. If I was doing a production, I would not have the guy doing all the tech in the show as a performer. It's just, to me, it seems so much of a quality move to make sure you, because I'm gonna let him know, I totally appreciate your job, dude. You are fully appreciated and needed. So I don't want you distracted. You could come back in the next show and be a performer, and I'll just have to get another tech guy. I don't want to do the divvying, the dual play, because now I'm going to definitely impress upon whoever's doing the hosting, producing slash MC. Each one of those cats, I think, should know that they're valued, and I don't want you distracted. I'm trying to get it to a level that is necessary that you be on tap. And we have the relationship that Sheila mentioned before. We got to have that. We got to basically want the same thing. I think to set it up for success starts with appreciation of individual skills and acknowledge that, and then have them want to be a part of this program. If you want to have a performance, then you become part of the talent. And I'll just get another tech guy to run the tech, because I know personally, I wouldn't want the stress of trying to be really, really good at both levels anymore. I don't want to do that. I want to be one or the other. I'm not the guy to encourage the dual citizenship, if you will. I want you to be who you are in the moment, full tilt commitment. When you're done with that, we can talk about, doing something totally different. But yeah, I find it to be a little different, honestly. Now, again, I'm not dismissing the fact that somebody might be able to do it, but I've been on both sides of this, and there's something to be said to committing to one thing. There's something to be said about that.
Thank you. Sherry, you have your hand up.
Yes, I had a couple of tips that tech tips that I've experienced and wanted to share. I have very unstable internet, and one day it just quit, and I was the host. So by the time I'd gone off and come back into YouTube, I'm thinking I'm not going to have anybody. They're going to all have to come back. But the thing is, the meeting went on while I was gone. Even though I was the host, they were still talking and going on as if I hadn't even been there. So that's just a tip. If your internet goes off, just close it, come back in. The other thing is write down your meeting ID, because oftentimes people will text you who can't get into the meeting. And if you've written down those numbers, they can get back in much easier than you're trying to send them an invitation with a long link on it. The ID number and the password number. And also, a lot of people come to the meeting and they don't show their picture. It's just a black box. Well, down in the settings on the left side where your video settings are, there is a little checkbox where you can move all those people in their black boxes to the back of the line. And you just have people on your screen that are pictures of people. So I hope that helps people.
Thank you. Thank you, Sherry.
Mm.
Tina, did you see another question?
I see that Rupa's got her hand up.
Oh,
Rupa, we'd love to hear
Rupa.
from you.
Hi, I have a basic question. As an MC, do you put your notes up as post-its so you're looking into the camera? Because I've seen MCs look down, look to the side. So how do you do that?
I got a little bit on that. It was so funny. My hosting, I used to have these cards. I thought it was cute to be like, like a talk show host and pull the cards out. But I found them cumbersome to be handling. This is during the live shows. I think I can't impress enough that you want to be more familiar with the introductions of the talent. And as Mio mentioned earlier, to be able to pronounce their name without actually looking at the cards. Now, if you have to have them, it would be nice to have them nearby without on screen, if that makes sense. But I think even if you have the notes, you have to make the effort to seem like you don't need them. That way, placing them around or wherever you might need them is not a priority. It's just backup. There's so much freedom that comes once you know what you're talking about. And there's that human connection that we get when we're familiar with something that you cannot fake if you're reading it. Anybody else?
Sheila, you introduce so many people every meeting. How do you handle that all?
Well, Mio was unmuting first, so I'll give it to
Mio, please.
Oh, thank you. But I just want to, agree with Ty. And when I'm an MC, I usually practice and not memorize, but learn what the story teller's bio and learn them first. And I practice maybe as much as when I'm a storyteller. So I think, sometimes I use a note when I'm on the virtual and I put the note on the screen, but I usually try to practice and learn the storytellers.
But you do keep notes somewhere so that in case you crash, you don't burn.
Correct. So for the virtual shows, I usually put the note on the screen, and when a storyteller is telling a story, then I will review it for the next storyteller.
But you have it at eye level, so so you're still engaged with the teller.
If you Cherry asked me what ASST is, and that's Artists Standing Strong Together, which is a nonprofit 501c3 organization where Sarah Armstrong is on our board, and our mission is to connect artists to resources. I was going to share with you that one of the things I do is I fake it. There's a reason why I actually have these wonderful Zoom, and this is one from yesterday, why I have these wonderful Zoom things here these slides that go up. And the reason is because the slide is up and people are looking at the slide and they're not looking at me. And so I'm usually this little thing in the corner. And so I can have all my notes anywhere I want them, and people don't know that I'm, doing whatever. This gives me this gives me a fake, basically. So I have something up that people are like looking at and reading, and they're also listening to me. So just so you know, that's one of the reasons why I usually have slides as a part of introductions, is because it just makes it so that that whoever the MC is, they can read their information, because sometimes it's more than what somebody can do in a short period of time. And we're getting away with that because you're just a little box in the corner. Nobody's really watching. They're looking at that beautiful slide that you have. So that's my fake.
Well,
So Sheila, let me ask you something. The other day I was trying to introduce somebody and I had his introduction up there on my screen. And at that point, he turned on his screen sharing because he had a slideshow. And that immediately knocked out my notes. And I had to go down, make his screen smaller so I could, it took me 20 seconds to get back to my notes.
But the notes I'm saying are notes that would not be on the computer. So those would be notes in hand.
All right.
So yeah, and I generally say that if you're going to don't use the note. I mean, you can fake it. I can certainly fake it and have, you would never know if I was looking at you or not. And I could be faking it completely and reading completely what's going on and have done such. As long as I look in the computer and into the camera, I can pretty much fake it. But generally I have it in my hand. I have something that's handheld and not on the computer. That way I can always look at it. Yes, that is what I do.
Also, Tina, there is a setting on the Zoom that prevents it from taking full screen when somebody shares the screen. So you may want to review the setting and check that box off.
Would that be under video settings?
I don't remember where, but yeah.
Okay.
There is.
I'll find it. That's great.
Thank
I
you.
see Asia Starr has had her hand up a long time.
Yes.
What do you say, Sarah? Should we ask her?
Oh, please.
There you go. Hi. So I recently had my first Zoom performance and I had no idea where to look. And so for both, so like right now I'm looking at the screen, and then also do I look into the soul? Like what is like, have you found it is like a preference on the audience / you guys on looking exactly into the camera or looking at, you know, off into the distance, into the screen?
Okay. Seems like I always go first. All right. Wow, that's a very good question because I'm the guy that thought he knew what he was doing until one day I watched one of my videos. And I looked pretty wild. So for me, it came down to a performance opportunity where I had someone talk to me about when I want to emphasize a point, as I'm doing now, or am I wondering or thinking about something? So there's certain things that I'm doing, but I know when I'm going to look at the camera because I know when the point's coming or I know when the moment's coming. Now, this is something I picked up from a stand-up comic. You guys may have heard of him, Chris Rock. When he's performing, he dialogues left and right. Every time he makes a point, he looks right at you and says it. And I found that to help with my timing for storytelling. And it also, I got feedback, which was wonderful, when people said to me, you were looking right at me. It wasn't random. It would only be when I was saying a point. So I guess my comment here is performance-based. Depends on your style, what you're saying, or, you know, there's some people who are just natural storytellers and they always lean in when they're making a point or when they're about to whisper something. But looking at the camera is very powerful. I would encourage you to process when you do it and why, so that it's not random. It can be very impactful, that eye contact.
Thank you. Thank you. Lenore Gallen asked the question, as someone with a lot to say, I would appreciate hearing well-stated ground rules for when you can ask a question, add a comment, or make a spontaneous comment. I realize that as a host, I have not done this and would like suggestions.
Do you mean as an audience member or as a host?
She means MC, I think.
Okay, MC.
Yeah.
Wow. Anybody? When? Go ahead.
No, go Ty. Go Ty.
Well, it's you know, so again, I believe if I understand the question, when does, as a host, as an MC, you make comments while someone else is doing their thing?
Fitting it into, I think, into the flow of things.
Okay. Standard operation, if you will, SOP. At the beginning, you make your comments. The talent does their thing. You are observing the talent. Something comes to you. When you come back, you make a comment about the act that just went off, and then you introduce the next person. That's just standard stuff. I don't think you're saying you would ever interrupt while they're talking. I'm sure that's not what you meant, but that flow makes sense because you're going to see something if you're paying attention to the talent. that triggers or inspires a thought. But as Sheila mentioned earlier, what can happen if you say too much is it almost seems like it's about you. And the whole experience is the whole experience. It's all the storytellers, it's you, the MC, but there's no dominance. There's just you linking this beautiful experience for everybody to experience and commented. And I made these notes before. There's never intentionally said anything negative to, as they say in improv, stop the flow. If you say no to a great thing, you stop the show. Yes, and you just keep going. And hopefully, you know, you have the wherewithal, because you have a lot to say, that it's in sales, we say a product, I used to be in sales. There's an item that has 50 features. Well, I don't tell you about all 50. I'm listening to you and I tell you about the ones that benefit you. So as an MC, if you have a lot to say, someone's going to say something up before you. That talent's going to say something that's going to trigger a really great thought. And that's the one you speak on, because everybody is in the room can relate to it. And it's going to be wonderful. And then allows you to leverage right into the next act. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Yeah. And you talked about stopping a great thing, Ty, and I happened to look at the time and I realized this is the time we need to wrap up the Q&A portion, because we only have so much time and we don't want to keep you here all afternoon. But please, if you still have unanswered questions, put them in chat. We're going to save the chat. Possibly we can include some of the answers to these questions in the book that we're going to be working on. Wow.
Super, super. And Claire says that there's a teleprompter app. So this will be interesting. We'll share that with you. And as Tina said, thank you so much, all of you, for all your questions and comments, and we'll be looking carefully at them after we're finished here. But we do want to stay on time, and so we're going to move into the next phase. And Claire is going to put into the chat a link to a Google form that is evaluations and also what else you'd like to see. So if you get a chance to fill that out now, that would be great. If not, we'll be sending it to you at a later time as well. So Tina, I think you were what's coming up for folks.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I'm sure you all would like to know what our panelists are up to. And, you know, we keep taking them in the same order, Sheila, Ty, Mio. So let's do it the opposite order this time. Mio, what's coming up for you?
I have a storytelling festival, and which I don't remember, but it's October 21st. And let's see. Yes, it's October 21st, and the time is 4 o'clock, and it's,
I think Claire has put a link for that event in
thank you so
chat.
much.
So what is that? That's an international storytelling festival?
Yes, the organizer is Towson University.
In Maryland.
Yes. And we also have a story masters meeting and a storytelling cafe. The meeting is that we have storytellers tell us stories and we share feedback for their stories. And storytelling cafe is that everybody is welcome to share their story or poems or whatever you have. So if you have a story to share, then you are welcome to join us as well. And it's also in the chat, I believe.
It is. It is.
Thank you.
Great. Okay. And just a question to all the workshop participants. Do you all know how to save chat? You go down there to those 3 little dots and press it, and you can save the chat, and it will end up on your computer screen after the show is over, and you will be able to get all these links. All right, Ty, what you up to?
About 5, 6. No, just kidding. No. Hey, unfortunately, people enjoy these things I come up with about my life. So I've been asked to perform live next Wednesday night here in LA at a place called Storage Salon. It's held inside a building called the Art Parlor. It's going to be live and outdoors. Hello. Looking forward to that. Yeah, I know, right? I get to show off. And then I was asked to perform at the Better Said Than Done show. It's a virtual show. So next week is September 6th. Following that, the October 23rd at Better Said Than Done. That's a virtual show. I don't have the link yet, but we can get that out there somehow. And believe it or not, somebody was silly enough to ask me to do a 45-minute storytelling show here in Pasadena, outdoors on the patio, December 4th at 2 p.m. Keep an eye out for that, because I don't even know what I'm going to talk about. So it's going to be pretty interesting. Thanks for asking. Appreciate it.
That's great, Ty. And Sheila, you talked a little bit about assist. So I don't know, do you want to talk about your own personal storytelling or about what assist is offering, or both? You're muted.
I'll do both when given the opportunity.
Oh, right.
I'm currently I'm one of the many storytellers that is a part of the National Storytelling Festival. It's virtual this year, so you can still go on and purchase it, and you have up to 2 weeks to watch all the amazing storytellers, and I happen to be one of those that get to play along with the game, so that's fun. And then Artists Standing Strong Together, our website is www.artiststandingstrongtogether.net. We have a list of upcoming events, and every Monday we have a weekly community gathering. It's open to anybody. There's no cost. We have wonderful things that we talk about, and we get some experts on there. We share we share to help each other, crowdsource, to get ideas. Thank you so much, Claire, for putting that up. That's at 4:00 p.m. Eastern Time, 1:00 p.m. Pacific Time. You are always welcome to come. This week coming up, we have What You Got Going On, which is 5 people that are sharing an idea and getting from others what their thoughts are to help them grow those ideas. And that is a really powerful time, and it's really, really cool. And then this Saturday, we have adults only, not this Saturday, that's today. Next week, we have adults only stories from 10 p.m. to 12 midnight Eastern, which is 7 to 9 p.m. 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific and such. So got a couple slots available for that night. So if you might want to share a story, you might want to get in touch with me at Sheila Arnold. I'll put my email down there because I just got a couple slots left for that night. Just so happens.
We can bring our glass of wine and get down, huh?
Please come drink in the wine. We believe in the wine. And if you're non-alcoholic, we believe in non-bubbly, but looks like it.
Do you want to put in your information about the next 6 Feet Apart productions? While she's doing that, that's great. So I want to also encourage you to join SAC. I know many of you are members, and then we've been delighted to have people who are not members. And we'd love to have you join us and participate in our programs and share who you are with us. Yes. So gosh, I just want to thank everybody. Our panelists, thank you so much for sharing your insight with us. Participants, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, your ideas, for being here. And we're always willing to take more. Please enjoy download the technical tips booklet that Mio put together, along with her Zoom bombing document. Very helpful. And we will be in touch. Take the survey if you haven't had a chance to do that. I want to thank Shags for setting up the whole meeting, and Claire for doing all the tech. We really, really appreciate it. So thank you so much for coming, everybody. Have a lovely afternoon and evening. Thank you.